Again, I want to say good morning to doing business with our state, doing business with the state of Arkansas. And here's the thing, when you're doing business, you need to be ready anytime, anywhere, under any circumstance. And today in particular, we're just going to speak about the state. So let's get started. What we're going to cover today is going to introduce you very briefly to our PTAC services. Then we'll also talk a little bit about state procurement law. We won't go in depth, but we'll give you the reference so you can look it up on your own. We'll also talk about the state vendor registration process. We'll talk some about the state minority certification and why it matters. And then we'll also talk about how do you bid on state contracts. In other words, what are those key things that's going to enable you to be successful? So let's talk a little bit about Arkansas PTAC services. So what does a PTAC do for you? Well, I think number one, we can assist you in federal and state registrations and certifications. We realize sometimes those registrations can be very difficult to navigate. They don't always make it easy, so we can assist you with those. We also can help you with federal and state marketing strategies. In other words, how do I get the federal government, how do I get the state government to pay attention to what I do or what I provide? We can also assist you with bid matching and websites to find bid opportunities. So we can also teach you some of the things that we've learned through our careers to help you find those opportunities that fit your business, what you do, and how you do it. We can also help you if you do find a bid, a solicitation, we can look at that. We have 5 counselors available with varied backgrounds, so we can make sure that you don't miss anything and that you totally understand the solicitation. And there's not going to be anything that might catch you short or cause you not to be successful in the opportunity you're pursuing. We can also help you when you found that solicitation, you put your proposal together. We can review that proposal and again, do some quality control. Not that you did anything wrong or you forgot something, but the more eyes that are on a project, the better off you are. So we can assist you with those things also. Again, we have the PTAC team, and you can see there that we have over 50 years of combined experience and just wanted to put some names and faces together. So let's talk about state procurement law. State procurement law can be downloaded at the link that I've provided in the slide, and again, you'll receive the slides. So if you want your own copy of state procurement law, I had to read through it several times as a state employee. There are no pictures. So it's an enjoyable thing to read through all those pages, but I think you can find some very interesting things, not only so far as in reference to your business, but how the state operates. So what are some things in that procurement law that are important? Number one, exclusive jurisdiction over procurement. What is that? Well, what happens is the state has exclusive jurisdiction to handle those products and services. In other words, state agencies can't go out on their own and solicit these products or services. They have to go through the Office of State Procurement. And that includes tires, paper products, printing to include paper,
gasoline vehicles, and school buses. As far as the equal opportunity policy, if you have fewer than 15 employees, you're not required to have an EEO policy. However, you have to have a written statement if you have fewer than 15 employees, just attesting to that fact. Prior to the contract award, all vendors must submit a current EEO policy or that written statement. Another key thing is illegal immigrants and the prohibition for public contracts for services, and it applies to all service contracts $25,000 or greater, and that also applies to any subcontractors that a prime contractor might use. So they're still responsible for those subcontractors that they use in performance of service or procuring or providing those products. Prohibition on contracting with entities that boycott Israel. Prior to issue of any written contract or purchase order with a value of $1,000 or greater, the vendor must sign a written statement saying that they intend not to engage in or do business with anyone who engages in a boycott of Israel. Now that seems pretty stringent, but there is a way out if you choose it. If you don't want that to apply, then you can offer as a company a 20%, what would be pretty much a discount. And if you offer that 20% off the cost, then that prohibition can be waived and you can be considered the lowest certified business. Another thing, penalties, gratuities, and conflict of interest. There's a lot of things that can kind of catch you in a situation where you could be disqualified. Vendors must disclose relationship with members of the General Assembly, constitutional officers, state board or commission members, or state employees. And often when you disclose that information, it's going to have to be present and past. In other words, if you have a direct or a close connection with someone who could influence a decision, then the state wants to know that, and just to make sure that there's no sense of impropriety by anyone who's involved in that process. Also, vendors must not offer, give, or agree to give any state employee a gratuity or to offer employment in connection with any contract, subcontract, or solicitation. In other words, you can't bribe state employees, so I wouldn't try it, because if you attempt that and you're caught, it could be a felony conviction. You could be fined up to $10,000, and most of us don't have $10,000 to start with. You can be in prison for not less than 1 year, not more than 5 years, or the vendor and the buyer can both be charged up to the full dollar amount of the contract. So just stay on the straight and narrow. Make sure if you have a question with any of the state laws that you ask in advance. You don't want those issues coming up after you've been awarded a contract. Again, we want you to be successful, so ask those questions early in the process. Well, what about the state vendor registration process? Again, like the federal government, you have to register with the federal government, so you have to register with the state government. With the federal government, you receive a CAGE code, a commercial and governmental entity code, and with the state, you receive a state vendor registration code or number. That's two separate things, so let's talk about that. Vendors do not have to be registered in order to submit a response to a bid or proposal. In other words, if you see a bid and you don't have a state vendor number as of that moment, you can still submit your bid, and then before award, you have to have a state vendor number. And again, it says you have to be registered with the Office of State Procurement in order to receive a contract. And I want to distinguish something while we're on this slide. You can have a vendor registration number without being considered a paid registered vendor. Well, what's the difference? If you were to do business with a state agency and you did not have a vendor number, that state agency can procure a W-9 from you. They can put together all the information they need, and they can actually issue a vendor number. However, if you want to be a paid, have paid registration, what that means is you go into the Office of State Procurement website, you register as a paid vendor, you pay a nominal fee, which is $25. And basically what that allows you to do is have all your information in the system for the state. And then also you can be notified by email if there's any bids or solicitations that involve your product or your service. The vendor registration, again, is tied to the online bid notification system, and you have to renew that paid registration annually. So vendor registration, if you go to the Office of State Procurement, you can have a tab circled in light purple or lavender, and it's called vendor registration. You can go to that tab, click on it, and you can start the process. We provided the link. I spoke of the $25 fee, and the website accepts Visa, MasterCard, or e-check. That is the only method of payment. Those registration fees can be waived for certified minority and certified women-owned business enterprise vendors. You're going to have a copy of your W-9, and you're going to have to provide that to the Office of State Procurement, because what the state does is just like the federal government validates and verifies your tax information, the state government is going to do also. So the business name and the federal ID, or if you use your social security numbers for your tax records, they have to match those IRS records, or you're going to come to a standstill, much like you would do if your IRS records did not match in SAM. When you come into the vendor registration process, there's going to be some differences for the state. With the federal government, you have the NAICS or the NAICS codes, the North American Industry Code System. Well, the state does not use that numerical system. The state uses material group numbers. And you have an example there of some of those state material group numbers. They are not the same as the NAICS or NAICS codes. You'll be able to select as many material group numbers as you would like. And again, that's tied into those automatic email notifications. And there's no limit to the material group numbers that you can select. Again, I would like to caution you very briefly, only choose those material group numbers that you know for sure that you could provide, or through a subcontractor, you could still bid on that solicitation and you wouldn't have any problems or issues because you don't need anything that would create negativity. So far as the state minority certification, why is it important? Why do we have that program? Well, number one, to deter fraud and abuse. Again, what I like to tell people is with a certification, you are not given a certification. I think probably most of you know, no one gives you very much at all. You earn your certification. No matter what category you fall into, there's a process. You have to submit forms and paperwork. So don't ever say or let anyone say that you were given a certification. You earned your certification. It maintains the integrity of the certification program and assists the state and other entities in tracking minority business participation. There are no goals with the state, but they do try to achieve certain percentages, and that's different with each individual agency, but that's very important. And then also to ensure the program meets constitutional requirements. And here's the thing, a couple of interesting things is the threshold for a small procurement with the state is $20,000. If you're a certified minority business enterprise or entity, then the state can spend up to $40,000 under those small purchase rules. Is certification necessary for you to bid on a state project? No, you don't have to be a certified minority business enterprise or entity to bid on a state project. So again, if you see something that you can bid on and you know you can do it successfully, do that. And then again, it's a process to be certified as a minority business. So you need to go ahead, bid on the solicitation, and then check into that process if you want to be certified and see if you qualify. In keeping with that, when a minority business enterprise is a business enterprise, it's owned or controlled solely by one or more socially or economically disadvantaged persons. The disadvantage may arise from cultural, racial, chronic economic circumstances or background or other similar cause. Minority means a lawful permanent resident of this state, in other words, the state of Arkansas, who is African American, American Indian, Asian American, Hispanic American, Pacific Islander American, or service-disabled veteran as designated by the United States Department of Veteran Affairs. So again, by law, those are the categories, and then socially or economically disadvantaged And here's what I would recommend based on some past experience. When you go through those certification processes and you want to prove that you're socially or economically disadvantaged, do some homework, go do some research, maybe find some other companies or businesses who are already certified and kind of let them do the buddy system or the partner system and walk you through that, because you want to have a good solid package when you submit for those certifications. If you do want to look into the minority vendor certification, that is underneath the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, and we provided some contact information. Your person of interest there will be Karen Castle. We provided her telephone number and her email. And look, they do a wonderful job there. They also provide some other services to you. So I would encourage you, even if you don't want to look at the minority vendor certification, contact the Arkansas Economic Development Commission and see what services they can offer any business. So bidding on state contracts. Again, you're going to find out that when you bid on state contracts, there's going to be some similarities between doing business with the federal government, but often there's going to be some differences, and those differences can be quite noticeable. What I want to start out with is I pulled the information for 2019, and this is what the state of Arkansas had in expenditures for 2019. In other words, there's a lot of business to be had out there. You just have to learn to navigate the system, because that's a lot of money and you could be part of that picture. Now understand this, we want to clarify something. It doesn't mean you will make money. We're saying there's a possibility that you can make some money, that your business can be successful, and that you continue to grow in your business. So let's talk about some things. Okay, what is a small purchase? A small purchase is anything up to $20,000, and this excludes those mandatory contracts. In other words, some of those things that I discussed with you earlier about the tires, the gasoline, the vehicles. Agency level purchases without utilizing the informal or formal bid processes. So what does that mean? Basically, if it's underneath $20,000 and I'm with a state agency, then I can just call you and say, this is what I need. This is when I need it. Can you get it to me? You say yes, and then I buy it. So it's a lot easier process. State agencies really appreciate the small purchases because they can do it quickly and efficiently. So small purchases. And again, if you're a certified minority business, then that at 20,000 becomes 40,000. All right, next category is quote bids, and that's anything over 20,000 and up to 75,000. Okay, by law, they have to have 3 contacts. In other words, to obtain a quote by fax, phone, or email. But understand this, if I attempt to contact 3 businesses and say your business is the only one that responds, I don't have to continue because I made 3 attempts, and that's how the law reads, 3 attempts. If you were the only business that responded, then I can just purchase that product or service through you. Okay, what about competitive sealed bids? These are purchases over $75,000. And again, those bid opportunities have to be published or have to be public, and you can find those bid opportunities at the link that we provided you. Now, here's the thing, when you deal with the state, the wheels of government don't always move swiftly. So I provided a chart with a small order or purchase, basically, up to 20,000, a state agency can do that in a day, maybe in a few hours. With those quote bids, same thing, it could be a day, it could be up to 3 days. But again, by state law, only attempt to get quote bids 3 different ones. So that can be fairly quick. On an invitation for bid, that could be from 5 days to 21 days. And again, one of the things that's happened over the last year with the transformation process with state government going from 40 agencies to 15, things have slowed down quite a bit. So it may be an extended process. So don't think that just because it's an invitation for bid, it's going to be a quick turnaround. The request for proposal, that's the 75,000 and above. And a request for proposal, again, requires you to provide some more information in detail as to what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. That could be 20 days to 30 days. But again, because of all the changes, and I'm sure the environment we're in now with COVID, that time window has increased somewhat. So just be patient and don't lose heart, because good things may come your way. There are two types of contracts. There's a firm contract and there's a term contract. If it's a firm contract, it'll always begin with 45000. If it's a term contract, it'll begin with 46. Okay, what's the difference? A firm contract is what we commonly refer to as a purchase order, and then a term contract would be a long-term contract. And what I mean by long-term, it could be for up to a year, or with the state of Arkansas, you can have an initial contract and then you can have extensions up to 6 years. So that's the difference between the firm and the term. This firm is normally a one-time purchase, and the term is a purchase over a period of time. When you talk about bidding on state contracts, here's some things to remember. If you're reading a solicitation or bid and you see the words must or shall and they're in bold or they're underlined, it means must and shall. You don't have any options. You're not going to change it. You have to do it their way. And if you don't abide by must or shall, then you're probably not going to be awarded. And if you are awarded and you get into the contract period, then things aren't going to go so smoothly. You know, check the OSP website for addenda. And what an addenda or addendum is that's a bid change. And why should you check the website? Because often the state of Arkansas will make you print that addenda, sign it, and then you have to return it with your proposal or with your bid. Make sure that your pricing range, any cost or price sheets, they need to be in ink. Do not submit them in pencil. They have to be in ink, or they have to be typed in, so far as using a computer program. Your signature, it has to be in ink. And, you know, sometimes we think about, well, okay, that's just a small thing. Just real quick, here's what a small thing can cost you. I had a bid once where someone didn't sign the piece of paper. Everything else was in place. They had the lowest bid, no signature. Well, what it did was two things. For the state of Arkansas, it cost the state an additional $30,000. However, for the vendor who would have been the awardee, it cost him a little over $80,000. So I made a phone call. I didn't have any options, and I told him he was not going to receive the bid. And this is what he said. Well, the signed copy is right here on my desk. Listen, if it's not turned in on time, that next bullet says failure to submit all required documents will result in disqualification of your bid. If it's not there with all the other paperwork, you're going to be disqualified. Okay, changes and corrections may be made prior to the bid opening. In other words, if you submit a bid and you submitted it early, and then all of a sudden you find out, well, hey, I need to change that, or I could do something different with the pricing, then you can make a correction all the way up to the bid opening. And then the last thing on that slide, read, and read again. I can't tell you how many times with the state of Arkansas, a person, a vendor, a business, they're going to be successful. They have that 7-year contract. Everything's okay until they notice something that they didn't read, and they can't perform the function or the service, and they're not going to be able to provide the product as it was requested. You don't want that to happen. So I know solicitations and bids are often quite boring, but read everything. For the bid delivery, make sure it's on time. Don't be late. One of our best story, well, I shouldn't say it's a best story, but one of our most interesting ones, we had someone, they came out of the elevator and they have a digital clock. She was literally a couple of seconds too late. So her bid was not accepted. Make sure that you get your bids in plenty of time. Bid openings are public, and you can ask for a copy of the bid tab. So that's very important to keep those things, even if you don't get the award, to use those things to look at them, compare prices, to research your competition. Bid evaluation, you have to be responsive and you have to be responsible. What does responsive mean? Simply that means that whatever documentation that was asked for, requested in the bid, you provide it. What does it mean responsible? Responsible means that you can provide the product as requested, or you can provide the service as requested. I'll give you one quick example. I had a bid, responsive, paperwork is there. Responsible. They had to prove or provide references that they had serviced a certain square footage of buildings because they were a janitorial service. Well, when I corresponded with those references, guess what? They had never cleaned a building to the size that was required in the bid. So be very careful to be responsive and be responsible. Anticipation to award, it's publicly posted for a period of 14 days prior to the award, and that award process, so for the 14 days, that allows someone, a business or a vendor, if you think you're aggrieved and maybe there was something that wasn't done appropriately or proper, then you can submit your protest. Again, it will have to be in writing. It will have to be to the Office of State Procurement, and they will evaluate that and they will give you a response in writing. Some other resources available to you, just that we want to mention briefly, is the state of Arkansas is so kind as to provide each and every one of you with a list of every purchasing agent in the entire state for state agencies. You can find those lists at the links we provided, and that is also, that not only includes the Office of State Procurement buyers, that also includes all the buyers for the state agencies, and then the buyers for higher education. The Arkansas Transparency site is a very unique site, and we've given you the link. You can go research companies. You can see how much money has been spent between the state of Arkansas and that agency, between that vendor or that business. So it's very useful for research. So I would encourage you to go to the websites, to download those lists, or at least know where they are, to contact some of those buyers and let them become familiar with you and with your business. Another resource that we have available to you as if you're a PTAC client, you have access to a system called Govology, and Govology has on-demand training. They have live webinars, and they have government marketing fundamentals are the areas they cover, and their strengths are educating, connecting, and serving. And again, I think it could be a valuable tool. And Govology is primarily with federal information, the federal government bidding, but there's some key things about marketing and some other subjects that would be useful to anyone. Again, the PTAC team, we have 5 counselors. We have excellent administrative support staff. So if you need us, call us, email, and understand this. We as counselors are very busy. So if you can't get in touch with us, you just keep call, email, call the administrative staff. We'll make sure that we get back with you. So that's it in a nutshell. I know we've gone rather quickly so far as doing business with our state. And I put, why I put our state is, even if you're not in the state of Arkansas, we want you to have a vested interest in the state and its success. And here's why. One of the things when I was in training with the state of Arkansas for the procurement office was this statement: we want you to want the state to be successful. If you would do that, then the state wants you to be successful, and the state will do anything and everything to make sure that both are successful together. So at this time, if there's any questions, we'll entertain those.
Okay, Tim, thank you so much. And so I would encourage anybody who has questions, use the chat box, and we will just kind of go on a first come, first served basis. Tim, you actually just touched on a topic that I know I feel quite a bit, and that is, can only Arkansas businesses bid on opportunities with the state of Arkansas?
And can out of state?
Yes.
Okay, basically the rules are the same. Even if it's an out of state business, all they have to do is register and become a vendor with the state of Arkansas and be issued the vendor registration number. So I would say when I was with the Office of State Procurement, we would have contracts that were very frequently awarded to businesses or companies that were outside of the state. So I think, Arkansas has no restrictions, and there's no advantage to being within the state of Arkansas. But I would encourage, whether you're in the state or outside of the state, to get your vendor registration completed and look at the bid and solicitation opportunities.
And Tim, it looks like we have a question in the chat box. Where on the Arkansas Office of Procurement website do we find the waiver of the $25 fee for those that are disadvantaged businesses? And so I'm not sure if Mary's referring to those that are certified as minority woman owned, or the disadvantaged business enterprise with highway department, but maybe if you could speak to both.
Okay, basically with the minority business enterprise being certified through the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, that's a certification that we covered in the presentation. And what someone would do if they have that certification, then they would contact the Office of State Procurement to let them know, because the Office of State Procurement is going to ask for some validation from the vendor, and then probably ask for some verification from the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. So the certification I spoke of in the slide is with and through the Arkansas Economic Development Commission.
So Tim, to follow up to that, what if they have the DBE certification, but not necessarily with AEDC?
Okay, basically what would happen is they would still need to at least contact the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, because sometimes a certification that they have in place can bear on being certified through the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. So if they have the other certification, just they should contact Karen Castle and provide her with that information, and then she would be able to tell them what they would need to do next.
And to the same point, I believe this
And Karen,
is applicable for some federal certifications as well, which should get you kind of like a fast track to the state certification.
and Tim did include Karen Castle's contact information on the EDC slide. Just a reminder, we will be sending this presentation out after the fact. One other topic I'm wondering if you can touch on, I think before I came here, when I thought of contracting with the state, I kind of thought about all those agencies right around the state capitol. But can you speak to just how far and wide the reach of state purchasing is, and what sort of institutions that encompasses?
Okay, and so far as, I'm not sure, could you restate that? I'm sorry.
Well, in other words, the colleges, universities, satellite offices of some of the agencies.
Mm-hmm. Okay, basically, when you think about the state of Arkansas, don't have tunnel vision. For instance, think of the Department of Health and Human Services, DHS. DHS, their main department, their agency is in Little Rock. But think about it, DHS is in every nook and cranny of the state. Now, why is that important? Because that local DHS office, they're going to need products, they're going to need supplies, they're going to need service, and all of that is not going to be worked through necessarily the Little Rock office or the main office. They're going to be doing some purchasing on their own. So if you're out in the community somewhere, if you're in Southwest Arkansas, in that far corner, somewhere there's going to be a state office, maybe DHS, maybe Department of Finance Administration as far as a revenue office. Those offices are going to be doing business, again, products, services, and they're going to be doing it in the local area. So, it's kind of an old school where you go in, you introduce yourself, provide them with your business card, make sure they are aware of who you are and what you do and how you do it. And then also with the colleges and universities, the colleges and universities have quite a bit of autonomy. So when you're talking about doing business with the state of Arkansas, you need to do some research on the institutions as far as higher education, because they're doing things on their own that are not published on the Office of State Procurement website, but they will be published on those individual institutions of higher education. It'll be posted on their websites. So there's a lot of opportunities. I think the key is to know where to look. And then once you find those things, okay, what is my angle to contact those people who can make a difference? Or maybe I can make them aware of what I do and that I do it extremely well. And then they will use me. If not at that point, maybe they'll use you in the future.
Okay, and Tim, it looks like we have some questions coming through the chat box. The first one, it's referring to, I believe, if a buyer is asking for proof that you're certified with AEDC as minority-owned business, what do you suggest that they provide to the buyer?
Okay, the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, when you finish that certification process, again, remember what I said about nothing's given, you earn it. So at the end of that process, they're going to give you documentation. If I'm not mistaken, you're actually issued a certificate, something formal that you can display in your business. So I would send the buyer a copy of that certificate that you received from the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, because again, it's a formal thing. It's very important. You have to work for it. And at the end, you receive proper proof. I guess that's the way I would say it. So you're going to receive something nice, just like you would receive from a Chamber of Commerce or somebody like that, recognizing that you are a minority business entity, and just provide that to the buyer.
Okay, Tim, and then we have another question. This says, we have a vendor number. What is the next step? Also, are we supposed to get daily emails for the bids, or do we have to go to the website each day to check for bids?
Okay, again, if you can be a registered paid vendor, and then you sign up for those email notifications. But again, the email notifications are based on the material group numbers that you provide in your profile. And then also you can have a vendor registration number, but you're not a paid registered vendor. So you wouldn't receive those emails. You would have to go back to the Office of State Procurement. You would actually have to go into that vendor registration system and be very careful, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to duplicate vendor numbers. I won't say who it was, but it was a fairly large company. We had a problem with an award once because they had 10 different vendor numbers. Out of those 10 vendor numbers, only one number was valid. So it just caused a great deal of confusion. So if you have a vendor number, but you're not a paid registered vendor, make sure that when you're doing that registration process, I would contact the Office of State Procurement and just let them know, and make sure you don't get a duplicate or actually a new vendor number. But after you receive that vendor number, if you want to do the email notifications, again, it's based on those material group numbers. But I would encourage all the businesses and all the vendors, listen, just because something is supposed to come, there's glitches in technology. So again, what I recommend is, and it's good practice, and even if it's not something you do or service you provide, during some of those slow times, look up solicitations, read through them, and that's going to help you become familiar with the process. Even though it's not a product or service that maybe you provide, it's just good practice and good homework to become better at what you do and how you do it.
Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any more questions, Tim. I think now would be a great opportunity for you to take them to a couple of the websites that you were referencing. And so real quick, Tim's gonna reshare his screen and pull up the browser to the Office of State Procurement and I believe a few more sites.
Okay. Miss Melanie, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, so right now we're looking at the PDF of the procurement laws and rules.
Okay, so basically, again, this is the procurement law and rules. And again, when I was an employee of the Office of State Procurement, I had to read through this. That was one of my first projects, was to read through everything. And you have such exciting topics as use of soybean ink and state printing. I think I actually, highlighted several sections in that one. But anyway, if you want to download a copy of this, again, one of the neat things that you can do with documents like this, you can hit Control F. Control F will give you a search box, and you can search for different things like minority business certification. You can look for those thresholds. You can look for those different rules and standards as far as equal opportunity, illegal immigrants, and also some of the ethics things. But, it's up to you. There's a lot of things that are in state procurement law that are very, very interesting, even if it doesn't apply to you. So all jokes aside, it's a very valuable document, has a lot of information that applies to a lot of different subject areas. So I would just go, explore, do some searches, and then it's always available online. So you don't have to download your own copy. But again, there's some things, and one of the things that I would bring up is this, and it was so helpful. If you do a bid, and for some reason you feel like you have been slighted, this is very important. Go to state procurement law and see if you can prove your point by finding the reference, because I saw both sides of it. On the state side, we pulled references and we provided it back to the vendor or the business, which proved our point. However, there are times when a business or a vendor, they pull a reference from state law and they prove their point. So it's important to at least become familiar with the procurement law in case you need it, so far as if you would like to do a protest on something, then you can back up your claims by maybe finding a reference in state law that proves your point.
And one thing I would like to reiterate, this is also true with the federal acquisition regulations. Please, please, please do not print this out and use it as, for the next 5 years, because they are changing this frequently on the state and federal side. So make sure you're going to the website that Tim gives you and, making sure you're using the most recent version.
And then the next page is the information for vendors. And then you have several tabs. And what I would encourage is you can see there's quite a bit of information. And sometimes we see all those tabs and well, hey, that's not very important just by looking at the title. Again, what I would encourage you to do, even if you don't read through all the information, is some of the tabs, like the contract grant and disclosure form. ABLE is very important. If you're a business in the state of Arkansas, you provide a product or a service, you need to register with ABLE. Basically right now in the environment we're in with the virus situation, the Arkansas Department of Emergency Management, it doesn't mean they will use you, but they use ABLE to look for products and services so far as companies that have registered in that system. Now, you can't register in ABLE until you have a vendor registration number. So when you are registered with the state of Arkansas, just take the time and effort, click on that ABLE link and go register as an Arkansas Emergency Business listing. But there's some information there. And then on the minority, this is the Arkansas Economic Development Commission site. Again, what I would encourage you to do is this. There's a certification that you receive, and if you're certified, I'll try it. Let's see if our link works. Can you still see the screen? One Howling Wolf.
Yes.
Okay, so here's what I want you to know, because everything is about saving money and making money as a business. If you are a certified minority, you can have your business name placed on this list. However, if you're not certified currently, even if you're not working on it, you can contact them and you can be added, because if you'll look, and I'll highlight it, business designation, minority business enterprise. It doesn't say certified, it just says minority business enterprise. So your business can be advertised on their website as being a minority business. And if you're certified in that block, it's going to say certified minority business enterprise. But why not use that free advertising to have your business listed on that page? And again, it has the information. We'll even have some NAICS codes as far as that federal side. So, you use all the opportunities you have to advertise your business and promote it. But again, you do not have to be certified to request and ask that your company be placed on this list if you're a minority business.
And I know for a fact, City of Little Rock in particular frequently searches that for solicitations, that they're trying to fill with a minority-owned business. I'm sure other cities do as well.
The last link I'll share with you, this is actually the procurement page, the main page. And if you just go over to the left side, the second tab or link is going to be bid opportunities. And this is what that page looks like. And remember, the threshold, $75,000 and above. So the bids that you see on the screen, and the first one is the harvesting services, SP 20-0073. So what it means that all those solicitations are $75,000 or above. What it also means is probably all of those solicitations are going to be for an award of 1 year, an extension of 6 years. Here's the thing, if you can get a state contract and you do mind your manners and you do an outstanding job, just think about it. You're going to have a paycheck for 7 years. So if you can do that, I think there's an advantage. With the federal government, the maximum amount of time is 5 years, but 7 years is a long time. It can bring stability to your company. You have some income, a steady income stream coming in. But I'm going to click on this link real quick for the first one. And basically, kind of the same setup, so to speak, as a federal bid when you're looking, except for more simplified. It shows the bid number. It shows the point of contact for that bid. And then underneath it shows the bid documents. Again, on that one slide, read. Read everything, even what we would consider those small print items. And again, normally, you're going to have a time for questions and answers. And I'll just click on I just want to make sure you can actually see the bid.
No, Tim, I think no, we're still seeing the browser.
Okay. Can you see it now?
No. There, now we can see it.
Okay. So very briefly, state bid are pretty much going to be in a standard template. Whether it's actually the Office of State Procurement, it's higher education. Normally it's going to be in some form or fashion like this. The first page is just going to be informational. So far as the bid, when it's opening, you'll have the point of contact down at the bottom. And we're a little bit close on our time. So what I would say is this, a couple of things. You have to make sure that whatever the state requests is though you return all those items. You don't want to take the chance of being disqualified. Again, must, shall. If it says should, that means there's a little bit of leeway in there, but if it's must and shall, you have to do it. in the way prescribed in the manner they tell you. Normally, and I won't scroll through because of time, but normally section 1 is a lot of some boilerplate and some ins and outs of what you're to provide as your response. Section 2 is the requirements of what maybe you would call a statement of work. Section 3 is going to be some information on payment in order to ask for a cost increase, those type issues, how to submit invoices. And then section 4, unless it's an intricate solicitation, section 4 will be standard terms and conditions. And last time I checked, they had 25 of those. But again, it's going to be some boilerplate, but pay very, very close attention to the bid and know the structure, know what the most important things are, but everything's important and don't forget it.